Yeah. Hi everybody.
The center, it's here.
Let's see. Who's with us? Oh, it's so weird. I feel like we're off center somehow.
Yeah.
No? Like you should move this way.
Right.
So move this way.
No, but the camera is good.
No, the camera's like that way. Who's with us, people?
Decía ahí cuánta gente conectada.
4 personas.
There are 4 people connected so far. Just say hi, so we know you're connected. There you go.
Hi, Marco and Agnieszka.
So the first talk of the day is like we're trying to figure out what to do with this hair. I have so much hair already that I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to brush it. There is no line there. Sorry, where? No.
The other side.
Oh my god, I'm backwards. Here. And it's a struggle.
I'm offering to cut Ivan's hair. Free services. But he doesn't seem to trust in my hair cutting.
Can you put us in? We can see what people are writing.
Yeah, you can, right there.
I cannot see it.
Hello, guys. Hi, Predrag. Who else is with us today?
This like make us a little pale.
Yeah.
I'm darker than this normally.
And I'm less yellow, but
Wow.
it is what it is. So yeah, we'll wait like a couple more minutes because this is the first time we've ever been on time.
Yeah. In the meantime, you can tell them.
And I'm pretty
any,
sure.
Any anecdota.
No, I want to show you something really cool. This is my tea, and I have like a little floating tea. You know what it reminds me of? A buoy in the ocean. Like you could tie a boat to it.
Maybe.
That's what it looks like. But it's too small. There's no boat that can float in there.
Tell me about your pizza today.
Oh, I made pizza today.
Amazing.
It was actually good because I finally got the right type of yeast.
Yeah, last time for the...
Yeah, I made bagels yesterday and it didn't turn out very well.
It didn't work.
But I'll try it again today, and then hopefully we'll have some fresh bagels tomorrow morning.
And the new thing I want to try, I already done the tortitas, which are from Argentina. Now there is the other thing that is really special in my family more than anything. I know other families also like it, but we like it especially. They're alfajores de miel. Those are the ones I really want to make.
Yeah, so we'll see.
I will see tomorrow if I get all the ingredients to make those.
Okay, good. So I think we should probably start talking about the stuff.
Yeah, people will catch up to it.
We wanted to talk about. So we are slowly going down the line of topics. We've covered walking and turns last time in a really general way. I'm kind of surprised we didn't have more questions about the turns. I guess people feel very comfortable with the idea that turns are circular, so that's very good. There was a question about how to lead turns because we've been talking about it from like more of a geometric perspective. So I guess we'll address that today. And there was a question about articulation, I guess, from like 2 weeks ago, and how not to go up, or that there's a problem that when you articulate a lot, that you actually move up. But we'll explain to you why you need to articulate. So maybe we should start. We should start with that.
To then go into how you lead the term, because it's related to that.
And then we'll talk about ochos.
Yeah, I mean, and a big idea.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah.
So our articulation is, think about it like this. The direction that you have for articulating your feet up, and the direction that you have to create to be able to move forward, in terms of timing or length, they're different, and that's why it's really hard to match. Right? So let me show you. Sorry, you can stay there.
Yeah.
Just put the camera beautiful for me.
Yeah.
Put the camera beautiful for me, for my feet. There you go. So let's say I'm gonna use my right foot. So to articulate, let's say, the length that I have to go up, it will depend on the strength of my foot, on my ankle flexibility, right? So I'm doing this, and this is my maximum right there, right? So let's say if I count it on take of length, I will do, let's say, 1, 2, 3, and that's my maximum, right? So the height, let's say, is the count of 3 for saying. But if I move forward, if I have to move forward, look how much time I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say I arrive on axis. So the hardest thing for most of us is to coordinate the idea of going up with the forward. A lot of people, they do exactly what I just did earlier, right? I mean, the second, without thinking of that. So they start doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Could you see there that actually on the 6 I end up going up? It's because when I'm going here, at some point, you see I'm starting to go actually down. So when I start to articulate, that's on the 4 and 5, let's say, 5, 6, and then it's 5, 6, and it looks like I'm raising up a little bit. That doesn't seem like a big deal for some people, so then I'm doing this, they bend their knees on that moment. So then that way it's like, oh, that's how we keep the level. Yes and no. The only problem is that what's hard to understand in the beginning is how you're creating the energy to be able to eventually lead you forward. That for now, how we're thinking about it, our own articulation, which will help us to move ourselves, so then we don't have to drag our feet or kind of do this down thing and then compensate with the knee when I articulate so that I don't go up. We like to think about it. Let me change the foot. I have the foot a little tired. So I want to match this up with the forward. So yeah, I didn't even go up or down. It becomes even. It's just because I know how to calculate the up with the forward to try to match that. And that's the hardest thing on the walk. And that's a question of strength and coordination in your ankles. Yes?
So if you are bouncing up in your walk, when you first start to articulate your ankles, it's because you're creating too much up direction for too little forward direction. So it looks like this.
The example it will be
up, forward, up.
Sorry,
a few times.
To show more.
Yeah.
So
up, forward, up, forward. Yeah. So that means that in your coordination forward is not even over space. You have first more up, and then you go down when you move forward. So in order to make sure that you don't go up or down, your forward direction, your up direction, those 1, 2, 3 that Ivan was talking about, has to be spread over the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that require the forward step. So if Ivan does it correctly, his hip doesn't lift up. Yeah? So like Ivan was saying, this is super important because in the beginning, before we understand how to use power or how to create a lot of energy from the floor, the articulation of the ankles and the movement of the axis is what makes the lead. So it's even if in the beginning you're going up, don't worry about it because you're creating power to be able to lead. So in the beginning, up is fine. Then over time, you'll see that that up starts to become like a forward. Another way to think about it is sort of the trajectory of your hips. So if you think of the bones of your hips, can you show them your hip bones right there, those hip bones? You almost want to imagine like what they're pointing to is towards the place where a wall meets the ceiling. So they're a little bit up, like at a 45-degree angle. So if you have, so if you have kind of like more of this direction, so no flat, but up 45 degrees towards that, if you imagine that your hips are constantly like on a string being pulled up there, that's the angle, then your tendency to walk will be flatter. You're not going to bounce.
So you're trying to keep these hips reaching on that direction, right? So it's easy to keep that.
That was a little bouncy, Bubby. Can you make it smoother?
I'm trying to look at the same time.
Don't look, just make it smooth.
I'm doing my hands.
Make it smooth.
Smooth is my middle name.
There we go. That was better. Yeah. Yay, so pretty. And so if you do it that way, then your legs will be longer in the back than in the front, and you'll have a really nice back line, back extension line, which is what sometimes people try to do artificially by sort of pointing their foot at the end. And that it kind of looks like that. It's pretty funny looking. But if you do it more naturally and you actually do it because the last thing that pushes the floor is your toes, then you have this nice long back line because technically that's how you're working.
So to exercise it, you can always try this. Stand forward, and then match it with the up. And then try to move it more forward. Like you want to go forward, up, and more forward, up, and more forward, up. You have your walk.
You just have to be careful that you take that only as an exercise. In our normal walk mechanic, in our default walk mechanic, your free leg never moves ahead of the axis.
Never.
So don't think that you're going to be walking from your standing leg in a default walk mechanic and that the front leg comes first. No goose walking. Yeah? The back leg, the free leg, comes because the whole axis is coming. And it's coming because the standing leg is pushing it. So for those of you guys who have tango meat, I really think that all of this stuff is there. So if you have questions about that and you have tango meat, just write us privately. We'll be super happy to go over any questions that you have. Okay, so that's about the ankle articulation and stuff. I hope that makes sense. The second thing that we were asking about, you guys were asking about, is like leading for the turns. So I don't exactly know what the question means. Why? Because in our universe, or the way that we think about things, you can create any type of turn that you want, but what's really key is that you know how to create energy and direction for your partner.
So I'm gonna put it in different words, my words. When somebody asks like, so how do you lead the turn? My question is like, how do you lead, period? Because and then that's maybe the question is more like, how do you lead in general? Because for us, that's how it is. How you lead, how to walk, how you lead, how to send her into a cross, how you lead her to do a pivot, how you lead her to do a sacada, or you do a sacada on how you lead to do a turn, and enrosque, etc., is all created the same way. So that's why when they ask us the question, sometimes it's complex on that sense.
Yeah, let me try to, I guess, explain it a little bit. So how we think about like just technique in tango is a little bit different maybe from what, so those of you guys who know us, who have more experience with us, you already kind of know this, but people who are listening who don't know how we work, I'll try to kind of parse it out. So we think about technique in tango as a holistic system where we have principles or ideas which then form a whole together by how they work together. So move the camera.
But to come closer, so then I don't have to move it. We don't feel.
Okay. So
I always have to move the opposite of the thing.
Sorry, guys. So things about how the body moves. So I have my own mechanic of my own movement. So every time I move in certain ways, right? Which means like the most natural possible way for me and the most efficient possible way for me as an individual, and for Ivan as an individual. So in terms of individual technique, for us, there's no difference between followers and leaders. Followers and leaders have the same technique because our bodies are pretty much the same. Like if I had the capacity to grow an extra leg when I was moving, then my technique would be different from Ivan's, but it's not. We have 2 legs, we have a symmetrical body, arms, all that stuff. So technically, we move the same way, from the standing leg, from the floor. So now, my individual body and Ivan's individual body, they fit together in a certain in a partnership work. This partnership work has to do more or less with how spirals interact with each other. So if we are moving together, there are rules about how we move together to be efficient and to be as natural as possible. Then our movement together, just how our bodies fit together, then we modify that based on the shape of the movement that there is. So different movements have different shapes. So for example, we were talking about turns last time. If we have a turn where Ivan is standing on one leg and I move around him, that turn has a different geometry in space from a turn where both of us are moving. For example, where Ivan is, let's say, doing sacadas to me as I move in space. So in like an enrosque, Ivan is standing on one leg, he's the center of the turn, I move around him. In a turn with sacadas, we're both moving around some common center. And now that common center also isn't stationary. Because we have elliptical movements, we're actually moving through space.
So the center that we're turning around is moving all the time.
All the time. So now let's say that we have a 360-degree turn, and we start here and we finish here. And Ivan does this with 2 sacadas. The geometry of that turn and the directions that he leads for me are going to be different from a turn where, let's say, we have 4 steps. Here, 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 and here. So imagine 4 steps in this turn, where he's also doing sacadas. So even though it's a turn with sacadas, because the shape and space is different and we're taking it in 4 steps, the geometry of that turn will be different from a turn with 2 steps, and it will be different shape of what he's leading me. So where I'm stepping will be different. So we'll show you, let's say, a turn with 2 steps with sacadas, and we'll show you a turn with 4 steps with sacadas. Yeah, I'm reading the...
Yeah, but I need to understand it too, because I'm the one that's going to do it.
We'll answer them later.
I know.
Okay, so let's show you these 2 turns. Hopefully you guys can see.
Put yourself there so I can put the camera correctly. Jesus. Which 2 turns?
So let's say a turn where I do 1, 2, and you do 2 sacadas. Yeah?
I need to read you so then I can place myself there. So it's easier. Yeah, that doesn't work like that. Yeah.
1.
I don't have my shoes. And I'm lazy to put it on. 1,
2. Yes? So you see how the geometry of that turn was, where my path was? Let's do it one more time.
Let me... 1, 2.
Yeah? So that's a turn where I have returned to my initial spot in 2 steps. This is this particular path. So now, can we do a turn where I do this? 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
With sacadas.
I do the same sacada.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So I returned pretty much to the same space, but now I've done 4 steps instead of 2, and Ivan has done sacadas in every single step. So you can see my path in these 2 steps, in these 2 possibilities are different. So basically every turn is a little bit different. You will never be so precise that you always step in the same place. And if you do, then it's choreographic. But if you're really leading and following, you're constantly adjusting. So maybe you're in a milonga.
I mean, mostly in the milonga, for the professionals, you practice to be able to be precise all the time.
But that's pretty much when people are doing choreography. When people are more improvising, the tendency is to be able to be flexible, because when you social dance,
you have to be able to adjust to the ronda, to what
to the
everybody else
spaces that are there, that are available for you, right? So this question about leading the turns is really tricky in the sense that, well, what turn do you want to lead? How do you want the shape to look? So that has to do with the geometry portion of what I was saying before about how we think about it, right? So this is like our individual bodies moving together in a particular shape of a particular turn that we want to do. So now, that's one set of questions. That just has to do with how our bodies work and how they work when we're moving together. Leading and following is like a different skill set. It doesn't have to do with geometry or with body mechanic. It has to do with how to create energy and direction. So in our world, we create energy and direction using different tools. One tool is articulation of the ankle and movement of the axis. Another tool is pressure of the body against the ground and movement of energy within the movement of the axis. Those are, like, let's say, 2 big energy generating ways. So now, those we use on a spectrum. Sometimes we push a little and move the axis a lot. Sometimes we move the axis a little and push a lot, and that creates different effects. That's energy. So now, direction has to do with where it is that he's sending me. So the way that we work, we're very precise. Ivan can put my foot exactly kind of where he wants it to go.
So I can tell her to step there, a little more there, here, there, all the way on the back there, all the way around here, all the way on the other side, right in between my legs. It's like whatever I want to put the leg. And this is, again, in a simple way, I'm just placing there. But we could also create a combination of all of them. Okay? Oh. There. Oh. Oh, I don't know. I have to move my legs so she can. Whoa. There, here.
Yeah? So that skill is not a memorization skill like geometry can be. Geometry is a very intellectual skill. It's like understanding the movements of the bodies in space, like how well you can visualize intellectually shapes.
Yeah. And you're going to ask again, so how do you lead that, right?
Can I finish what I think?
Yes.
So this skill is a feeling skill.
Yes.
It's a skill of being able to understand the energy feedback loop, what you're creating for the follower, and what she's actually giving back to you, and then continuously adjusting the input until you get the output which you're looking for. And so because this is a communication skill, it's a skill of connection, communication, and attention, it kind of works both ways. Whatever it is that Ivan is telling me, I can also tell him. So we are very in tune with each other, and we're really paying attention to each other. he's not moving my body to make me do anything. He's giving me information through his body work, through his internal work, as to what my internal work should be. He's telling me information through the movement of his axis as to what my axis should be. So asking the question of like, how do you lead it is a very complex question, because it's a question of how do you, first of all, create the energy and direction, and then how do you pass the information to your partner?
So an easier way that you can start exploring this idea of leading, I don't want to, and I cannot tell you everything about it, but now, like,
this kind of work is actually better done in person because it's feeling work. So you have to be aware of where to pay attention in the person's body. You have to be aware of what they're doing with their body. Once you have that awareness, it's much easier.
But all I can tell you can start exploring is like, pay attention of how you move your axis and the amount of energy that you create towards your partner. That's very much, I'm telling you, a lot right there. So if you can try to figure that out, unless, we see you soon, which I hope we can see all of you soon, but things are different. Think about it like that. How you managing your axis, or more than likely her axis, with the energy that you're creating, right? That hopefully goes towards her.
So there's a question, when I lead the turn as a leader, I didn't do any embellishments with my legs. What I do with my legs when she's doing turns? Same. Well, everything a lot of embellishments and turns are actually functional. They help to create the energy and direction that your partner requires. So they're never empty, in the sense that it's never really an embellishment for the leader. Most of the time, those embellishments they have a purpose. They're helping you to lead.
So we don't think about, they look like an embellishment, and we all call them embellishment, but we think about it, you're using them to lead. So for example, earlier I lead to Sara to do this. Jesus, we need to do more. Right? Like a lapis, like start backwards. Right? And the easier way is like if I do it myself. So my own movement is creating her movement, right? I'm moving my axis, putting energy towards her in particular directions. Now, let's say we're in cross system. Yes? In regular system, I meant outside corner. And I wanted to do the same thing. The directions are going to be the same. One more time. We really need to dance more. Yes? So what I'm causing with my own movement is the same directions. So I could say that yes, my is an embellishment, but I could also say that actually is creating that movement for her. Do you understand that again? I'm creating this direction. Yes? I'm creating this, which is to the side, which if I put energy, I'm creating that direction. And if I'm moving back, I'm creating that for her. So my embellishment that looks like a lapis is actually causing this. So that's why your embellishments, they are not just embellishments.
Yeah. So if you're not doing anything with your legs and turns, it's not possible.
Then that means you're just standing and she's going around because she knows the pattern.
Or you're pulling her with your upper body, you're pulling her lower body, and her legs are going because her upper body is going. Yeah. So another question: do you stretch your upper body while transferring weight from one leg to another, or you just use your legs to move? Actually, that's a really good question. This is the walking question from before, from the articulation, Alexei. Yeah, we stretch the body. The stretch of the body is important more in the landing rather than the takeoff. So we were talking more about articulation in terms of takeoff, but not so much how the landing happens. The stretch is really important in the landing because that's what creates space in the hip, so that there's an amortization of the body when it lands on top of the leg.
Film it. So, for example, this is the.
A little more back. Down, no, but it's moving by itself.
Can you put it more down?
No, move back a little. Just move back a little.
No, because then it's too far.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
There.
So let's say I'm gonna do the landing. Even if I do the articulation correctly and everything, but I don't create the stretch in the body, you're still gonna feel that I kind of like come forward, right? So look. So you still kind of have the. But now, as I'm going to land, I'm going to think almost like if my leg wants to go down, but my body from my hip up, it wants to go up. So again, so as I land, instead of doing con, I want to actually feel that I'm going to almost stretch my body more. I'm overdoing it now so you see it, right? And as I do it, that's the end of my articulation.
So that stretch that Ivan showed so beautifully, that stretch is not in the spine necessarily. I mean, you want to have a nice long spine so you can spiral, because if you don't have room in your spine, then all of the little spirals, they're really hard to do, so your vertebrae can't rotate. But it's between the femur and the pelvis. So if this is my hip joint and this is the femur inside, what you want to stretch, you want to stretch the leg almost like out of the pelvis. You want to create space there.
Without moving your hips up and down.
Up and down. So it's like a lot of the deep internal pelvic muscles are engaging and they're creating room up to create a turning force as a continuation of the step. Okay, so this is a really good question.
I say hi to somebody.
Do you? Oh yeah.
Slow down.
Sorry.
Slow down. You're technical. Going to fix everything. No, right now. Just say hi to. Singapore. Hi.
Hi and hi, Tang. We miss you.
Hey, Tang.
You should be here.
Yeah, Tang was supposed to be here.
Anyway, yeah. Hi, Tikhon. Do you use that stretch to create a turning force as a continuation of the step, or you always use push mechanic to create an energy for turn? So the reason why we don't use the stretch to create a turning force is because the energy for the rotation most of the time begins in the lower body. So if I am turning, let's say that I'm doing a normal turn, like let's say a forward step to a side step. Let's say I'm just doing like a turn around my partner and I have the forward side, back side position. When I come into the forward step, I already have a spiral position. I already have stretch of a spiral. So now then, because I already have a spiral, I can't rotate my body anymore, and I don't want to pull my legs behind my upper body. So I already have the spiral position. Now from here, this is stationary, and it's the lower body that rotates.
Again?
So I have the spiral, and then the lower body rotates, and then as I pass, the upper body passes to be on the other side. And then from here, again, it's the lower body that rotates. For those of you guys who are looking at the Tango Meet videos, that's kind of what happens. So the driving force in us being able to maintain and embrace without force, without pushing and pulling each other, but have a lot of speed, has to do with how the upper body and lower body spiral around each other. So there is definitely tension in the body because of the spiral and because of the stretch, but we're not using it in a passive kind of elastic release way.
It's a more engaged.
It's an engaged way.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's definitely a sensation of tension, but we're not using that tension to create speed.
To swing yourself
To
around.
swing ourselves around. We
push through it.
We're pushing through it to create more control, and then to also be able to pass information. Sometimes when you just release and you use the tension as a release, that moment of speed, you don't pass to your partner. So if we were to use a mechanic like that, it would be an individual movement of some kind. Like, for example, oh, babe, can you do the chiki 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 really fast?
Chiki chikis?
Chiki 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 chikis.
By myself?
So let's say,
leading you?
yeah. So by yourself. So let's say that Ivan is doing an embellishment. He does this embellishment a lot, which is where the hips are going fast. Chicka, 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 chicka.
It's not an embellishment. You can leave it.
Yes. No, I just walk. Sometimes in like, if you don't want me to do it.
Okay,
let's say this. See that? Chicka, 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 chicka. So there he would use the stretch to continue the rotation. But that is not affecting me. That's only, let's say, when he wants to be fancy. But
you could also lead her to do the same thing while you do it.
Yeah, but if he wants to lead me and do that movement, then he can't hang on the edges of his stretch. He has to tell me through the ground that he also needs me to rotate.
I still don't hang on that.
I know you don't hang, but you're using the edges of the stretch to bring yourself back, like a snap, 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 snap. It's relaxed. It's not pushing so much through.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad we agree with each other. Oh. Okay. So if we don't have any other questions about this other stuff, let's talk about ochos. We talked about that.
Maybe.
I'm on top of the questions, baby. Okay. Ochos. What do you want to say about ochos?
Ochos. Last time I was telling you, I give you a little, ¿cómo se dice? Hint.
Yeah.
Right? About ochos. And we say, how do you make, I say, ochos, like literally means in Spanish, is the number 8. Yes? So, picture right here in the camera, and number 8. Yeah, I'm going to start. Let's see if I can do it from here. Jesus.
Don't look at it.
I don't look at it. Yes. So that's a number 8, perfectly nice and circular. Now what I'm going to do with that 8, see, you have no idea what I'm doing right now, but I'm kind of like hypnotizing you, all of you. Just kidding. Yeah, so that's the ocho. So now imagine that ocho picture still is there, and now I'm going to grab them from the ends of it. Where's my other hand? There you go. Wow,
this camera is backwards.
Crooked and backwards.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm gonna get the end of the ochos, where the circular parts are, and I'm gonna stretch it a little bit. So now I'm gonna have more like an infinitive
sign.
Yes, sign. Yes. You still have the circle, but more circular on that sense. So if the ocho, number 8, let's say it has that, and then I stretch it a little more to make it more like the infinitive sign. Explain me what is this that I'm going to do right now, and how you call this. Camera?
Yes.
Action! Okay, I'm going to do it here, and then I'm going to do it in front of the camera. Okay? Okay, same. Jesus. Do any of these ones that I have shown you so far, do they have a shape of a number 8? Do they? Don't lie to me. I'm seeing you, I can see all of you. No, they do not. That looks like a line and a dot. A line and a dot. It doesn't even look like any number. So we want to literally, for us, resemble the number 8.
So it's not so important that the ocho is called ocho. And Ivan,
obviously.
Ivan likes
I took it literal. So somebody told me it looks like a number 8. Okay, I will make sure that it's like number 8. Oh no! It looks like infinitive number. There's a problem there. No, but
yeah. So he, it's not that like the name of it is important. It could be called.
Call it whatever you want, right?
Right. It could be called whatever. The point is that linear ochos are really inefficient if we want to be able to have good geometry in general.
Or in general, like to be, let's say, more fluid, to be able to be, let's say, to go smooth, slower if we need to, or faster, and in the geometry creates a big problem because you end up feeling that you go away from your partner. Besides that, create a disconnection in your partner.
Yeah. So the key understanding of why ochos should be circular actually has to do with doing them in close embrace and then trying to understand how to do it. There are a lot of different techniques that were kind of invented to make it possible to stay in close embrace when you're doing ochos, like rolling or
relaxing
the arms, or relaxing letting the shoulders go. There are a lot of kind of ways of compensation that have to happen if your legs are moving in a linear way in ochos, and we see this more in forward ochos than in back ochos. Forward ochos tend to be more problematic than back ochos for some reason. I don't know why, especially in close embrace. So we'll show you guys close embrace ochos in a line, and we'll show you why there are different resolutions for it, which are kind of like compensations.
Oh, Jesus.
So.
Just the camera, I take my glasses off, I don't see anything.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so you guys can see our whole body, so we'll do them this way.
Linear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
So there are a few problems.
Yeah, the first one.
Okay.
Right away.
The first one is my hips. If I do the ochos in a linear way, when we step, the widest part of my hip is right next to him.
And when she pivots.
And when I pivot, my outside hip comes closer to him, and then again he doesn't have space. So close embrace ochos is one of the first reasons why people started moving their hips away. Because the idea was, well, hips create space. Yes, they create space until you have to do like a sacada, and then they cause a problem. So that's the first problem. The second problem happens in the upper body. If I do a disassociated ocho, meaning that my lower body goes in a line, I have to have a lot of flexibility to be able to maintain the upper body with my partner. So this is completely unnatural mechanically, because what I'm creating in this disassociation, which I hate this concept and this word and I never use it, but I'm using it now because it is what people talk about. I'm creating like two blocks in my body. A block from my waist down, and then my hips and my knees and my feet are trying to make a line. And then a sort of like another block from my upper body where I'm trying to come as close as possible to my partner. This is really not a happy body here. And on top of that, I need a little bit of lean.
Lean because the hip is in the way.
Because
I have to do it too. And I have to twist too.
Yeah. So this is one. So this is kind of like, okay, well, you don't have to be so flexible. That just kind of the leader has to rotate more and has to let go of the arms more. So then we get this. But this also doesn't really work because we can't maintain constant contact.
There is a moment, mostly the moment of the pivot, we disconnect and then we connect. We disconnect and then we connect.
So what it starts to feel like, it starts to feel like a very unsatisfying physical relationship. We're like...
Yeah. Again, if you were trying to keep a close embrace,
yeah.
Talk about opening, then it's a close.
Then you can compensate in different ways.
Do whatever you want and it won't matter.
So...
Only the connection.
Yeah. So then the other... No, in open embrace you have problems with geometry if you go online.
Yes, and the connection too, because people don't know how to connect on an open embrace.
So then people just say, well, no, then you just kind of like roll on the body. You roll from one side of the chest to the other side of the chest, and that's what helps you maintain the connection. But then still, even if I'm rolling, the issue is that I have all of this opening here, now in the front.
So let's say we are connected now on the side, but we're not really having frontal here, even if I try to rotate myself.
And then as we step, I then rotate to the other side. So I'm literally like doing this on him. We don't have this constant sensation. And that kind of, for us, what's really important with technique is that it is consistent so that we can work in the same way in different distances from each other, meaning that the way that we work here is the same how we work here is the same how we work here. So if we start to conceive of ochos as having a belly, meaning literally having a belly of the 8, that the number 8 has, that we respect this roundness of the axis in the 8, we avoid a lot of these issues and we can work in the same way in open and close embrace.
In a way, I wouldn't do this. I will start by, I need to start to make the curve, to make the belly.
So this, Ivan is doing my part now.
Yes.
So this
my
would be,
part would be,
let's say I'm doing the ochos, this is what I would be doing.
Right, so you start the curve here, and then the curve have to continue to the other side. I finish it on this side, I open, and then I make the curve to the other side. I cannot do this. I have to do.
So if that's what he's leading for me, he also can't make a line.
Meaning I cannot do just this, because I'm making the path of the, somebody say, oh, it's like a step and a pivot. Right, she's just stepping and pivoting, stepping and pivoting. But there are two disconnected things. We want to be able to create, like if she's creating the curve for me to create this, I also need to move into those places. So my axis have to create that. So this is the ocho that I'm making for her. So I'm moving all the way around my axis.
This is why understanding like axis management is one of the most important skills in all dance. And it's very important in leading and following in tango because it allows us to create spaces for our bodies which otherwise wouldn't be there.
So we have, from here I cannot do this. I have to try to make the one, where are they going? One.
Yeah. So that making the ochos more like a number 8, respecting that there's a belly to the ocho, has a lot of benefits. It allows our bodies to stay more spiral together and make spaces for the hips, because the moment that the widest part of my body is coming through is not when I'm in the axis, it's actually as I'm already starting to move forward. So we are avoiding being kind of in the same place at the same time with the body.
It's like if when you're here, hold on. When your hip is gonna move, I also move.
Yes. So we're moving through those spaces simultaneously. This is really
when she pivots,
useful.
So then the hip is on the way. I need to move away without leaning. I did this now, but I have to move on my axis. Right? I don't have my feet here, so I can't show it.
So we started with a forward step because in the back step, that already kind of happens. The difference between a forward ocho and a back ocho is that in a forward ocho, my standing leg is on my inside hip and my outside hip is coming through the center. In a back ocho, my back leg is coming away from the center. So I'm actually not interfering forward into the space that Ivan is in. I'm opening the space with my body by moving into the back leg. It's easier and we do it more naturally if we think that these movements are curved and not linear.
Yes.
So for the back ochos, Just as much as in the forward ocho, what's important is to open the standing leg to be able to curve. In the back ocho, what's important is to open the hip to be able to create the same curvature. So I don't want to overcross the line of my leg, meaning make kind of like go into the same line of my standing leg. What I want to do is I want to open my hip and then have the hip make that space. Yeah? So if on top of this I overcross, it's way too much. I can't transfer the weight.
Also, it helps again the idea of like be careful with the idea of pivoting without creating the movement. So we have close, way easier. Yes, you can create this here, right, by me moving my axis, but it's always easier to use it as a moving step, right? Remember, a pivot for us is a
it's right the same when you should the forward in place.
Fine, please.
Yeah.
Sorry. One. This is easier. She's coming towards me. I still do, funny enough, I do the same movement for me. I'm moving my axis back and forward as it's creating this lateral.
Yeah. So the effect of this is also much more elastic. It looks much more breathable.
Of course, if you emphasize it even more, we're trying to emphasize so you guys can see it. Eventually, it could be just for you and your partner. You don't have to emphasize it. But if you emphasize it, then it looks a little more stretchy, more breath, more elastic.
Yeah, and we showed it to you in close embrace because it's way more difficult to do in close embrace. So if it works in close, it works in open, and we wouldn't really change that sensation. Now, of course, going lateral or making it like overturned, meaning that let's say I'm doing a back ocho, but I'm moving forward. Or I'm doing a forward ocho and I'm moving backwards. Those are like the most kind of stressful positions, and they require the most circularity.
And those are really hard to keep in a close embrace.
Those are really hard to keep, but let's say lateral, we can still keep in a close embrace. Beyond lateral,
it's tough.
It's really, really tough because at that point, the spiral of the body doesn't allow for that direction. We have to create, the space has to give some place, and it usually gives in the embrace.
So in a way, for the social part of it, that's your maximum, I would say, is the lateral thing, which a lot of people complain because when you create the lateral movement, that even if you're creating this little nice and shape, but you're staying here, you're stopping the entire ronda behind you.
So originally, all of these ochos, they were displacing movements.
You were moving continuously around the ronda.
Yeah, the idea was that you were using them to actually dance in the ronda.
To move.
To move.
Not to stay in place.
Doing side steps.
Doing side by side.
Yeah. So that's kind of the most important thing that I wanted to talk about ochos. If you guys have any questions about them, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
But while we're waiting for your questions, I have a challenge for you guys. To kind of really understand, for those of you who are not our students probably know this, but guys who are not our students, try to walk outside partner. Try to walk in cross system on, let's say, the left side of the embrace, 5 steps. And then on the right side of the embrace, 5 steps.
You were nice.
Then 4 and 4, then 3, then 3, then 2, then 2, then 1 and 1, and then switch every single step and tell us what happens. Okay, Predrag, question. Speaking of the embrace, how do you enter the embrace? Which muscles do you activate? What shape do you use?
What shape do you like?
What shape do you like? The internal work for the embrace is more important than the shape that you make.
The outside is like, today I decided to put this shirt, but I don't know, tomorrow it could be something else. The internal is how you keep your embrace, And what you use, the most important thing is to think of your lats, yes, under your arms, and to connect them. And why this camera, Jesus? To don't raise your shoulders. I really don't like this. This creates a lot of problems eventually for, not so much for the dancing yet. If you know, after a while it starts to create problems in your body, start to tilt many different things. So it's to keep your shoulders down, right? Engage your lats, and you want to to hold your embrace yourself. You don't want anybody that is on top of you or you are on top of them.
Sometimes what tends to happen with people when they focus a lot on their lats, because this is a common advice for how to use internally the work. Sometimes what happens to people is that they use their lats and they do this, and then they go into this kind of like broken position. See, like I'm arching. So the trick with the lats is to first stretch your head away so that you create space in your spine. Then you bring your lats down and you engage them. And then to prevent the opening here, we had a very special teacher who take these two fingers and then she would hook you like into your solar plexus and like poke up under the rib cage. And so what that would do is transform this posture into this posture. So the feeling in the back is like you have a cobra back. Like the back is full and energized and straight, and that the front and the back planes of the body have the same importance. So sometimes if you only focus on your shoulder blades and your lats, the tendency is to bring this forward. But when you spread wide your back by connecting the front part of your body, you tend to get this pretty well balanced position. In terms of the hands, it depends. If I'm feeling like beastly, then I want to do this with my hands. I want to do this.
So that will be like how she's expressing herself.
If we're feeling very elegant, then I want to do this. If I'm feeling this, then I'm...
Yes. And then even on all these positions that I can look, can you show the first one here? Right? She's not pushing at me from her arms. There is more energy on her arm, but there is no a pushing action. So regardless of what you do, that's why you call it embrace. You didn't say frame, right? So this is something stiff that it has a particular shape and it doesn't move from there. That becomes a shape that is a frame. So an embrace is something that is flexible. So even if it could look really stiff, it doesn't mean that inside, yes, is stiff. You have to have a little give. Yeah, that's why it's an embrace. And then whatever you put it is your choice. Just for me, be careful that doesn't interfere with the rest of your body. Let's say if it's too high and somehow, for me, for example, I don't have really flexible shoulders. I cannot do this. You see, I cannot lift and keep the shoulder down. So I cannot raise it too much. So I have to put it enough that it doesn't interfere with my shoulder. So this is the highest I can, right? So it doesn't interfere with other things. Other than that, it's your own personal choice. Yeah. How you lead follower Rulu Duran? Did he just arrive?
No.
He
asked a question before.
Did he ask a question before?
Yeah, he asked a lot of questions. He has like 3 questions.
Okay, so why he's asking me how you lead the Rulo?
He wants to know.
But we answer in a way.
Alexei, I actually don't understand what movement you're talking about. Are you talking about followers and rosque forward?
Kind of planeo, but kind of open turn. Can you modify that? Circular boleros. You can modify anything into anything. How do you lead the follower rulo during the forward?
Are you talking about the enrosque? Are you talking about?
Yes, he's talking about that.
Are you
yes.
talking about?
Yes.
This?
Yes.
Into the forward step?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you lead it like you do any enrosque.
You lead how you lead. Think about it like this. Try to see if you can lead your follower to extend her leg forward.
Without pivoting on her standing leg.
Mm-hmm. Or let's say without moving your axis too much. So you should be able to create the difference between these two things. And that's kind of like the beginning to understand. The difference between creating this and creating this. Yes? You have to be able to do it even if she's not in the same position, right? This, sorry, let me move here so you guys can see it. This and this. You have to be able to understand how you live this. Then from there, the rest is easy.
Then from there, it's a matter of directions. Which direction is it? Which direction is it is that you're creating? So
which again, it leaves you into this. Think about how many directions has a pivot.
Ooh, maybe we can talk about pivots next time. That would be fun.
Okay.
I can get into that.
And can you modify it into circular boleos? Circular boleos, yes. They're more likely, all the boleos are more circular. There are only 2 that I know that they're lineal.
What do you mean there are 2 that are lineal?
Yeah, you kick back and you kick forward. The rest, they're circular.
No, you can have a side boleo that's linear.
Okay, 3, sorry. I forgot the
3
side.
directions, but actually you can have a billion different boleos in those directions.
Yes.
So don't say 3 boleos because that means something else.
Lineals you can have, let's say, a general ones, back, forward, and side. And yes, we can count that, say, okay, it's a small back boleo. That could be like an X, another boleo, but it's the same of the back one.
Let's say the directions,
lineal
directions, there are only 3 of them.
Lineal. The rest
in any movement that you're doing.
The rest, they're all circular.
Yeah. So it's just a question of how circular the thing is. Can you modify it into circular boleo? So the differences between an enrosque with a weight transfer and a boleo has to do primarily with the energy that you're giving to your partner. Yeah. So and the beginning is pretty much the same, but then the end is not the same. Plus acceleration. Yeah. It's that kind of a question it's a really good question, but it's something that would be awesome to do in person.
Yeah, and
or at least like where we can see what you're doing because
and explain you in a different way to get to understand that eventually this wouldn't be a question.
Yeah.
But we like it.
Yeah. Thank you for asking it. Okay, Predrag, thank you. One additional question. Do you also make your lower back wide and circular to enter, create the embrace? Or the embrace starts from the lats? No, the embrace is like your whole body. So when we think about the embrace, the position of the body has to do with like how you use your whole body inside of the axis of your feet, which have a lot of space forward and back. So that energy in your back is actually coming from the floor. So it's coming from your heel all the way up your back line. And your lower back width is super important because if you are really using your stomach muscles, you shouldn't have side back holes in your body. Can you stand up, Chichi? So, so just turn backwards. Or you can kneel backwards. Maybe that's more useful.
1 second, I have like
he's very gentle
knees.
But turn backwards to the camera first. Turn backwards. So,
can you see?
Just straighten up.
One second. Jesus.
No, but lift up, because now we can't see your lower back. There, okay. To modify all of this. Okay. So here if you have little holes here, you see how it's all soft there? That means that he's not actually engaging his stomach muscles. So to have a good pelvic floor and stomach engagement, that, you see now how it's all hard? That has to be full. If this part here is empty and loose, that means that he's not actually using the muscles of his trunk to connect his legs and his upper body. So to have a good... to have a good embrace that transmits information, which is important, and the information that's important is all coming from the floor. It needs to be connected to the floor, meaning you need to have a connection between your upper body and your legs, and that's your trunk. So if your trunk is not working...
So now, Sara went really deep into something that's really hard to do. You don't have to try to create that little thing yet. All that you have to try to do is to pay attention to. But
that was the question. I'm just answering the question.
I know, but you need to think about other people too. Yes, it's great you have all the information, but you have to be realistic too. So, easier to think about is like whenever you want to create the embrace, try to feel, yes, that it starts in the ground, in the sense that that pressure that you create towards the ground, that there is some energy, it goes into the
fills your body.
Yes, that's an easier way to think about it.
But you still want to make it elastic and full.
Okay. She hasn't danced in a while. So we're inside a lot, so you need to understand.
I'm so desperate that I've actually started running.
Yeah, and Sara hates running. She even lied to me, like how much she ran the...
Oh my god! Oh my god! You don't believe me! Yeah,
because we started running together, and then I lost her completely. She did 3 blocks, she's like, I need to stop. And then I didn't see her anymore for like the rest hour.
I can do like...
And then she said, like, I went all the way around.
I did, but you didn't win twice.
I went twice on one part, which normally, like, you know, like, is not that long compared to how much she did.
I went really far. I did.
But then she arrived before me home. She was like 15-20 minutes. I'm waiting for you home. I'm like, so how much do you run? Oh, I run a lot. And it's like, it's not possible.
No, I actually did run that. I'm not lying. I swear.
We'll test it.
I swear. Yeah. I mean, I can literally do like insanity exercise at home if it's like jumping or stuff like that. But running is death. And I used to run track.
Yes. You just know everybody have a perfect bone structure.
Ivan is like a bird. I have heavy Balkan bones.
Right? I'm like a bird.
My bones are filled with lead.
I am a bird.
You're a little birdie.
Yeah.
You're so... He's like hippity hoppity, like a little bunny. When you see him running, he's like... I'm like...
We have light bones in my family.
Yeah.
But we're really grumpy at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I'm like the juggernaut.
Yeah.
If I run hard enough, I'll just run it like through it.
You can feel Sara when she runs next to you, like Jackie.
Oh my god, it's so bad. Yeah. So
hopefully
I'll get better at running.
He said he tried and he feel it.
Pushing the floor activates lower abs, which widens your obliques.
Awesome.
You see, you have ye of little faith.
No, I'm just trying to be like. Sometimes the truth is, guys, some of you we don't work all the time with you guys. You know, we might see you once in a while, so we don't know what you know and what you don't know. So sometimes I try to we can be super.
Ivan is like into baby steps. No.
Yes, we can be super precise about which muscle you use before you even think that you have a muscle. Right? And sometimes it could be useful, but depending where you are, so we don't know. So sometimes I give the general thing and Sara goes into super detailed, analytic, like anal preciseness of technique, which it helped. Very good.
Okay, very good. So we've been talking for an hour and it's time to stop.
Yes, and also the battery is telling us to stop.
Yeah, the battery is telling us to stop. So thank you guys so much for paying attention and for being with us and for asking us questions. We miss it. We miss teaching.
Yeah.
We are teaching some privates online over Skype. So if you want, let us know. And if it's enough that you just watch a video with us, then go to Tango Meet. if you have other questions that crop up at the end of this, write us a personal question, or better yet, write a question on the YouTube video. And next time, I think we should talk about pivots.
Pivots.
Yeah. Pivots.
Oh my God, that's the hardest thing to do. Pivots are really hard to lead.
Yeah. Pivots.
Yes, to lead them well. And we have a really interesting idea, which I don't know if we should tell.
I don't know. We'll see.
Depends.
Okay. Many kisses to everybody. Thank you guys so much for paying attention, for being with us.
No, espera que te haga una otra pregunta.
No.
The time. Yeah. So anyway, thank you.
Bye.
Enjoy.
Hopefully we see you.
Yes, eat healthy.
And now I will attempt bagels number 2.
Right now, but I'm supposed to do my tortillas.
No, you're not making tortillas. I'm making bagels.